This meeting of the Tyler ISD Board of Trustees is called to order. We do have the presence of a quorum. The meeting has been duly called and the notice of the meeting has been posted in the time and manner required. Thanks everybody for coming out today. It does not appear that we have any public participation. Okay, well, we'll just move on to our continuous improvement and student outcomes portion of the meeting. We have a safety and security update followed by a cybersecurity update.
As part of the board monitoring calendar, you have leading off today, Agent Jeff Millsagel, our Director of Safety and Security, that'll provide you a quarterly, is it quarterly? Yeah, quarterly? Quarterly safety and security update, always an important part of our operations every day. So here we go.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Washman, board members. Oh, it's better? You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Crawford and of course Ms. Orr. I was last here before you in January, and that's just a few months ago, but a lot of things have happened since then, and I'll dive right into it. We have a new security gate on the back side of Rise at Stewart and a camera. It's raised up from about 6 feet up to 7.5 feet, and that was just installed and finished last week. Our bus cameras have been ongoing. We found some technical issues in the downloading, and thank you to Joseph Jackson, his staff, for addressing that. So they're putting a bigger pipe in and more fiber, and that should be completed by midsummer now is what the estimate is. Our smart sensors are being installed as we speak. There will be approximately 68 instead of 72 at our 4 high schools, and they should be up and running within about 10 working days. All the fiber has been run, and they're ready to start drilling and installing those, and then they'll go online so that our security department and our principals and APs will be notified if those alarms go off. We've hired an additional security personnel, Deputy Peter Marchese, who's in the back. Some of you have met, so he is on board, and he and Dave Goodson and myself are currently this week visiting with the fire marshal doing his annual inspections, which started on Monday. And the next time I'm before you, I will have a report from the fire marshal on how we did or did not do on the annual inspections. 2 days ago, we had the quarterly meeting of our safety committee where we bring outside people in, discussed much of the stuff that we're discussing here today. In January, I met with the city council, I met with the traffic board, and we adjusted the school crossing zones. So as you're out and about, you'll start seeing them start to disappear. The one in Plyler was removed by a drunk driver the other night, so it saved the city a whole bunch of money. They plowed into the sign and it was laying on the ground. But Encore had to come and do the electrical for that. They also approved the new crossing zone at Hubbard, up Hubbard Drive, and that was done by the city. So that is phase 1, and phase 2 will incorporate the private schools and some of our other areas that we've identified. One of those being the new road at Three Lakes that goes all the way from Three Lakes to Old Noonday Road. So they'll have to do a school zone there, possible crossing guard there, and stripe the road there. So that is coming, because right now it's kind of a racetrack as you head west on there from Three Lakes. We've been working with the school crossing guards. We had some dangerous crossings, especially at Roanoke and 323. That crossing guard has been relocated to the back side of Bell at 6th Street and Baxter. And those kids are walking to a bus stop about a quarter of a mile from their house rather than crossing that loop. There's three children. So kudos to John Baggert and his crew for taking care of that. We also are working with mapping with the city of Tyler, and that is started to finish up with the city of Tyler. We took their GIS mapping and their new rules for registered sex offenders, so we're not picking up or dropping off one of our students at a registered sex offender's house. That's been overlaid. John Baggert has adjusted a couple of routes. Trying to work with the county. They've not been as cooperative as the city, but we're working toward getting that done for all of our county routes so that we're like I said, not dropping off someone where they shouldn't be dropped off or picked up. The weather detections for lightning will be installed next week at the Aquatic Center for the pool, and that way we have completed all our high schools, all of our middle schools, and the pool. And then with the 2 additional deputies that I have, we're going to get ahead of the school safety audits for the Texas School Safety Center. We're going to do those this summer, and that comes on the heels of what the fire department's going to give us here in another month. So we're going to kick that off during the summer school. The other thing that we'll have to do is work with Mentoring Alliance and the Boys and Girls Clubs and make sure they're up to par along with Rose City Summer Camps on their drills, because that was a question that was raised this morning, and we'll address that in our school safety audits. And that's kind of where we're going, and subject to any of your questions.
Okay, anybody have any questions about any of that?
I've got a couple easy questions.
All right.
On your crossing guards, I guess y'all do an evaluation on where they're needed and where they're not needed anymore?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yeah, that is done at the beginning of the year, and then throughout the year, I'm talking with the city, traffic engineer, and Jimmy Ramsey, risk management. He's in charge of the crossing guards. Every Monday, I get a report from Jimmy as to how many were crossed at each place.
Okay.
So we've adjusted along the way. As you'll recall, last year, you might have seen Miss Porter sitting out here out back. She is now a floater, so if somebody's missing, she goes and does that. But we have the numbers. And we've met at Bell, we've met at Bolter, and at Tyler High this year since January to see what can we do to make it better and safer.
Okay. So if you've got 0 kids using it, it's phased out usually?
Yes.
And you relocate
Yeah,
them
a
somewhere
lot
else?
quicker than previous
Yeah,
with Mr. Ramsey on board.
very good. And then on your weather detection, what happens when, so we've done a lot of youth sports, and so we always just were trying to look on our phone and, probably wasn't the best way to do it. How does your system work?
Okay,
And how far away is lightning?
all right, if lightning is detected within a half a mile of that system that's on the roof at our campuses, it goes off. It's a flashing light that goes off, and you can hear it. And
Okay.
at that point, it also goes to all the officers that are there, that are assigned those campuses. It goes to the coaches, and then they're to leave the field, and it will do an all clear in about 30 minutes. Much like the one at Rose Stadium when we had graduation. They're the same.
So
same
half a
program.
mile?
Half a mile.
Okay.
So far, we have had no complaints from the folks near Tyler High and at Hubbard, because it went off a lot the other night. My phone goes off
Yeah, I
a whole
bet.
bunch.
All right, that's all I have.
Is there a way to adjust that radius? Do you know?
Yes, it can go out to 1 mile.
Okay.
If we want.
That's the furthest it can go out?
Furthest it can go, yes.
Ooh, okay.
So, yeah, it would be going off quite a
Yeah,
bit. So
that's-
that is what the Perry Weather, the vendor that we've used for years at Rose Stadium, they recommend a half a mile. Unless
Because
there's,
it used to be, when you take those lightning detectors, 15 miles was kind of the, get everybody off the field thing. so.
right, you can, we can
Okay.
adjust it, but that's what their
Okay.
folks say. I mean, if you guys want us to do
That was
it a
awfully
mile.
sensitive on those things. I mean, you can't outrun the speed of light.
Right.
You can get away from a tornado, but just kind of makes me a little, gives me the heebie-jeebies on that. So it doesn't sound like it's super sensitive, Mr. Burkfield.
Yeah,
If it's
no.
half a mile away.
No, I'll still have to
Yeah,
use my phone.
I think so. Yeah,
I mean, I think, yeah.
5
Maybe
miles.
5 to 10,
absolutely.
yeah.
If they'll do it.
If any of you guys want, give me your email address or your phone number, and I can have it typed
Well,
in. We have
yeah, and I
unlimited-
think, too, it's, a sporting event's one thing, to me. When you got a whole bunch of kids and fans out in the open versus people just regularly at school, you don't want that thing going off all the time when there's no events happening, so, I don't know. Just curious.
Okay. question regarding my usual question that I get on a monthly basis, but I want to get to ask you this quarterly. How's the crosswalk at Tyler High coming along?
Where it stands right now is the city of Tyler has agreed to do it. They've gone to TxDOT. They have to get the approval of the plans of what kind of crosswalk will be there on the north end of Tyler High. The one that I recommended and talked to the city traffic engineer was the same one that they use over at UT Tyler on Old Woman Road. It's cost effective because it's not inexpensive, and the city has agreed to, at least they're working their way through agreeing to waive the engineering fees for that. To not have an outside group come in and see how many cars cross and how many kids cost, because we've all been out there to see that.
Mr. Newsom, temporarily, until that happens, we're going to take into our own hands. So August of 22-23, you'll have actually an opportunity to vote on some, I don't know what we're going to, some
Vehicles,
signage.
signage and vehicles.
Signage and vehicles here in future board meetings in regard to add additional patrol cars and some portable signage that we can use at other places as well that we do need. You'll be able to vote on those come, I think this next board meeting, the next regular meeting.
I believe so. That's what Chief was
Yeah.
looking at.
And so with the hire of 2 additional patrolmen,
Okay.
specifically for traffic as well. Now, when we get finally get the permanent signage up, if we're fortunate enough to get that UT Tyler type of stop sign, there'll be a crossing guard right there.
That is correct.
Yeah, and so we'll take care of the crossing right there with a patrolman during this interim fix that we're gonna try, so. And then, again, a lot of administrative coaching and supervision from police department, safety and security, and then administration, Mr. Jones. Instead of just saying, y'all go to the crosswalk, we've got to get people coached up and trained on it. We've been saying this for a long time, so.
Thank you.
One last thing before we move on, just wanted to, I don't know if y'all saw this, the Senate, as provided by the Lieutenant Governor, the Senate interim charges. You know, it's a long list that he wants the state Senate to work on, or committees to work on, just like the House does. But one of note that's extremely important for us is the vaping. I think we did talk about it in the Safe TISD meeting the other day. We did, obviously on that Safe TISD quarterly group, we've got 2 board members, and then we've got a representative from Tyler Police. Those things are dangerous, y'all. And I know we love our freedom and making choices here in Smith County, but it is a youth problem. You're going to start seeing some problems with some fentanyl inside. They're already putting THC inside of them, unbeknownst to them or sometimes beknownst to the user. But you're going to start seeing some of the stuff starting to creep in a little bit. There's already been some issues in regard to that with police breaking these things and getting them on their hands, and then they're having to get the Narcan treatment. So this vape stuff and the mist is not all it's made out to be. You could be walking through mist with fentanyl in it. And that's a dangerous thing. It's a very unregulated industry. And, I mean, you know, there's vape shops that are popping up everywhere in our community. You know, Tyler, Texas, Smith County for the longest time, till 2010 or 12, did not even sell beer or wine inside the city limits. I can't believe I'm talking about this at a board meeting, but why not? We've talked about other things, right? We don't have liquor stores inside of Tyler, Texas, and yet we've got vape stores quite a bit all over the place. So it is something that is concerning to us. I'm glad the state Senate is looking at that, because some of us have kids or grandkids in our school systems, or will have grandkids in our school systems. That is a concern, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic about this thing, but this is an issue that we're spending way too much time on, that is a safety issue as well. I don't know how many cases we've got right now at the lab in regard to THC on vaping.
And this is just an estimate. I think there's about 9 or 10
Yeah.
that I recall from Chief. They've had one ISD in Tennessee back in December, a vaping. They pulled a vape off a child, and the 2 APs went down and the 2 officers went down, and they had to get the Narcan out to save their life. It had fentanyl in it, so it's coming, and we just don't want it to come here,
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Yeah, I appreciate the Lieutenant Governor with his
Stepping out.
ears open about this too. So obviously he's getting some noise about it as well. So want to make y'all aware of that, that we've got a little bit of a challenge ahead of us. And we're not the only communities dealing with this. I hear every time I would get on a state superintendent Zoom call or I have a meeting, this comes up. This is one of the issues. We start talking about learning loss and COVID slide and summer slide. I'm hearing more and more about behaviors than I am academic deficiencies, and this is one of them, so.
I did forget one slide, and I apologize. Crisis Go, the threat assessment, we brought it down to all of our campuses now, all the elementary ones, because unfortunately, we're seeing, Lori Anderson's group and our group are seeing threats and stuff on social media of our real young kids. Because everybody, by the time the average kid gets their first cell phone at 10 and a half years old. So you're talking 4th, 5th grade. So we've added that into the mix.
Yeah, we'd like maybe the state or the House to add that to their charges, interim charges, social media. So maybe that's next.
Taking up a lot of our time lately, things on social media.
Dr. Crawford, in regards to the vaping, how are we dealing with the students that we find that have the apparatuses on campus? What's the procedure?
Yeah, Student Code of Conduct outlines that fairly well. We talked about this. John Johnson talked about the implications in the Student Code of Conduct. If there's not not just the vape, just the vape pens, but
Right.
anything THC, maybe a gummy. You look at the actual. If you let's take gummies for a second. Let me divert a little bit. Let's say you got some gummies that are enhanced with THC. If you just test one gummy, you don't get to test the whole bag. Is that right, Mr.?
Yes.
Or Agent Millslegel?
Gosh.
And
It's
if that
very-
THC is below a certain limit,
It's
then
okay.
there's no penalty.
There's no criminal
Now, you
penalty.
take
But
more
just-
than one
just to
gummy.
jump in,
Yeah.
that's criminally,
Criminal.
Right,
not necessarily within Tyler ISD.
Correct.
Because
Discipline.
anything in Tyler ISD that has THC in it, you're,
That's correct.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yes.
so then we
Okay.
kick over to the vape side of it, it's the same thing. If they've got a vape pen and it does not have the THC inside the vape pen, then there's a variety of things in a level 1 consequence on the Student Code of Conduct that
Okay.
could happen. It could be a warning, it could be in-school suspension, anything from a warning to in-school suspension to campus service. Second offense is a little different. Then you start talking about all out-of-school placement, whether it be DAP or OSS. That's if they've just got a vape pen on them. They'll take the cartridge out, send it to the lab, and see if there's actually THC in it or not to kick it up to a mandatory removal, which could be 60 to 90 days in regard to that. So, yeah, that process is pretty tight and very similar to what we used to have when we'd get caught with tobacco. You know, the first shot of either snuff or cigarettes, you'd usually get a warning in some way, shape, or form, some type of warning consequence. And then the second offense, you would actually get a stiffer penalty per the Student Code of Conduct.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing we're doing to protect our administrators, officers, and security folks is when we get these vapes, gloves on immediately. Because it can get into your skin, and if it's really bad, you could have some problems real quick.
okay. Thank you for the update.
You bet.
Appreciate you. Move on to our cybersecurity update.
Here comes Daryl and Joseph Jacks.
Jacks Attacks.
Our techies that are going to wind up talking to us a little bit about the cyber update. This is actually a twice-a-year update, I believe. Once a year, excuse me. Per your packet here, does have what the requirements are. So we're going to turn it over to Mr. Jacks at Kisasande.
Okay, well, thanks board members and Dr. Crawford. Appreciate the opportunity to give you a security update for this year and also the opportunity to get away from that desk for a few minutes. As y'all know, I'm Joseph Jacks. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the district, and with me I have Daryl Kisa Sunday, who is our network security engineer. He's been with us for a long time, been with us in this capacity since 2017 as the security engineer. So just kind of off the bat here, as you well know, several years ago there were some bills passed by the legislature that adhere to cybersecurity in schools. The first one being Senate Bill 820 that requires school districts to create a cybersecurity plan, which we did, designate a cybersecurity coordinator, which is Mr. Kisa Sunday, and report any attacks that we have to TEA. The other one is House Bill 3834 that requires us to have annual cybersecurity training. We utilize a product called KnowBe4 Cybersecurity Awareness Training. Many of you are probably aware of that because you used to have to take it. I'm not sure if you still do or not, but we've had this training platform in place since 2017 as well, and our employees must successfully complete this training annually to keep access to our network. As I said a second ago, Daryl is our network security engineer, and his position was created in 2017. He's been with us for 14 years, 15 years, but he was moved into that position back in 2017. And he serves as the cybersecurity coordinator to report to TEA. So he's the one that if we have any cyber attacks, he contacts TEA and manages that situation with them. Thankfully, we don't have anything to report and haven't had, so that's good. He also performs random phishing attacks of our employees to make sure that they are learning things from the training that we give them. He does a lot of other behind-the-scenes things that he'll talk about in a second. The other area of expertise that we kind of rely on in the district is a company called Synary Cyber Intelligence. They used to be called Sentinel Cyber Intelligence. They changed their name last year, but it's the same company. They're a company out of Waco that specializes in working with school districts to help them strengthen their cybersecurity stance. They helped us back in 2019, I believe, to create a cybersecurity plan and that you guys approved. They perform regular network penetration testing of our network, and they also perform ongoing threat assessments and monitoring of our network to help us stay ahead of new things coming out. As a matter of fact, last week we just completed the cybersecurity threat assessment with the help of Synary. What that looks like is it's a 46-point assessment that my technology staff and I get on the phone with them. We go through a whole series of questions, and they evaluate that and come back with a point system to kind of assess how our security stance looks. Happy to say that this year we made a 10% improvement over last year compared to the last time we took this, about March of last year. And compared to other school districts that they have assessed, we're 24% higher than other assessed school districts. So we were really happy about that. We knew we had made some improvement. I wasn't quite expecting to be 10% improvement, but that's really good, and we're really excited about that. Some of the things that we did to gain that 10% improvement was to enable multi-factor authentication for logging into our network from external sources. We upgraded and replaced a lot of aging hardware in our data center, a lot of old servers, a lot of older versions of Windows and things of that nature that we couldn't patch up, so we replaced a lot of that stuff. Implemented and hardened, we implemented a hardened backup system with immutable storage, which means that the backups that we do of all of our systems are now what they call immutable, which means they're not able to be hacked. We keep those, so that was a nice upgrade we did this year. We remodeled and upgraded the main data center at our administration building. We were actually working on that, I think getting started on that last year when I gave this report. We had just got started, so we finished that project, and it's been a huge help to the stability of our network. We have also began work on a secondary data center at Legacy High School and a district-wide fiber optic network that's going to give us a lot of redundancy and protect our network from outages. So some notable tools that we have. I'm going to let Daryl talk to y'all real quick about some of the tools that we use and how we use those district.
Good morning. Just as already talked about a number of these tools we have. All of them, or almost all of them, revolve around protecting our network infrastructure, mostly from phishing attacks. That's where the biggest threat vector comes from. So all of our work is mostly revolves around trying to protect against that. So one of the primary ways we do that is by training our staff to how to recognize a phishing attack And with that, we use KnowBe4, as Joseph mentioned. We also have firewalls. The firewalls are going to help prevent, the general everyday attacker from intruding into our network. Usually that is not going to be a phishing attack. That just the Russians or whoever saying, I want inside your stuff. We're pretty good at blocking that. That hardly works. Our content keeper, so say a user gets infected with a virus or somebody attacks and they want to access a website outside to where it be ransomware or whatever the case may be, our content keeper is pretty good at blocking that stuff. To give you an idea, for the past month of March, we blocked 363 million websites in just a month. And we had over 1.4 billion actual blocks, a lot of ads and that kind of stuff. So it's pretty effective. He also mentioned that we have the the Centurion. The Centurion actually monitors all of our traffic coming into and out of our network. And they give us a heads up when somebody's either A, trying to hack into our network, or B, something's actually inside our network and actually trying to communicate outside of our network and get to where they want to go. We know immediately, and we're able to see and actually block those attacks as they're happening. The next one is the big one, is our email filter. That's what actually stops the majority of the emails coming to the district. So we all still get spam messages and we all still get these phishing attacks, but to give you an idea, for in the last 30 days, we have blocked 4.5 million threats. That's actual threats that the content filter has blocked. And another 507,000 marketing and bulk messages. Of all the email that we've received within the district, only about 5% of it is actually legitimate email. So that gives you an idea of how effective.
Yeah, we're not
the
batting
filter is.
1,000 on that.
Yeah, it's
Some of those marketing emails.
It's
Trust
not
me.
100%. Yeah, it's not 100%, but as you see, we get a large chunk of it. Next thing we have is our something that does get through our email. We have our CrowdStrike antivirus. It is a next generation antivirus. It's very effective. It's not like the old days where the virus has an ID and then they just pick up ID and you have your scanning list, and if it's not there, this new generation of antivirus actually monitors what the computer and the user are actually doing. So if somebody is actually taking control of your machine, this antivirus will tell us what they're doing. So it's extremely effective, and I can happily say that this year we've had very, very few instances of viruses. I pulled it up and it wasn't even worth putting on here because it was like 7 over the past 30 days. So it's very good. The next one I want to talk about is Aristotle Insight. This is a tool that we work with Agent Milslug on. It actually allows us to monitor what students and staff are doing. From a cybersecurity standpoint, it allows us to monitor what a user is doing within our network. So if somebody gets infected with a computer and they're trying to take control of that computer and access our internal resources, we get alerted on them using built-in applications that we wouldn't normally be able to detect. With Agent Milslug, it detects all the keywords and things like that the kids do, all the bad words that they type, and that allows us to actually pick up bullying and things of those natures and threats against the district itself, whether it be physical threats or where the case may be. It's very effective as well. We see an average of 46,000 blocks a week. That's how many times we get flagged. Agent Milslug reads through about 130-something pages a day of all the kids typing dirty words and trying to go places they shouldn't be going. So those reports go daily to Agent Milslug staff, as well as campus staff and the TICPD. Changes that we made this year that actually helped us increase our Texas cybersecurity readiness, obviously, is multi-factor authentication. We just did that a month or so ago. That has already stopped attackers from stealing people's credentials, or if they do get them, they can no longer log in as that user and spam the inside our network and get past our content filter and our email filter. So we blocked that, and we've also disabled the ability for somebody from overseas to be able to do it. So if you go overseas, you won't be able to log in overseas. So that's the biggest one we've done.
So I just want to thank you guys for approving a lot of these tools that we use here. Without them, it'd be really hard for just the small staff that we have to protect our network. But with these tools, we're able to really protect us, and we have a really solid security stance. So I want to talk about another thing real quick as it relates to cybersecurity. When you think about cybersecurity, I think mostly you think about the tools we just mentioned, policies that protect us, email filters, antivirus. But the other big thing that relates to cybersecurity is the infrastructure of your network. Because everything these days, as you know, runs on the network. Your phone systems, our alarm systems, our security cameras, and everything else runs on the network. If the network goes down, if we lose internet, if the data center goes down, somebody uses a bulldozer and bulldozes up the fiber optics going into one of the campuses, we lose all those services. And so last year, again, about the time that I was given this report, we were in the process of a revitalization of our data center at the administration building. We'd had a lot of issues in there. The thing hadn't been refreshed in about 20 years. And so we went through and we upgraded the HVAC systems. We installed fire suppression. We updated the electrical system and revitalized the backup generator, put a new transfer switch and electrical. We've also upgraded a lot of the hardware in there. And so we now have a very stable data center that no longer goes down every time the weather is bad or the power goes out. We can rely on our generator and our backup system. Just a quick look at what the data center looks like now. I would be embarrassed to show you what it looked like beforehand. It looked pretty rough. But it looks really good now. And again, thank you for approving that project last year and allowing us to update that data center. What that means now is that we're in good shape whenever we have storms, and when we can rely on that and go home at night. These guys can go home at night and not worry about getting called in every time there's lightning. So where are we now? These are last year's goals for 2021 that we wanted to accomplish as it relates to cybersecurity. Continually reinforcing cybersecurity training for all employees, check, we did that. We do that every year. Revising our cybersecurity standards and guidelines, we do that every day. If there's something comes up and we need to make some changes, we're able to change our guidelines and standards to fit the changing world of cybersecurity. Updating core hardware and software systems to ensure optimal uptime, we absolutely did that. Revitalizing the data center and replacing some of those old servers has really made a big difference. Establishing a secondary data center at Legacy High School, that's in process right now. If it wasn't for the supply chain shortages, that would have been operational in December. Providing multiple paths for increased internet connectivity, that's in process right now, awaiting E-rate fund to pay for the majority of that project. And then connecting our campuses to the administration data center, the Legacy data center, just to create a fiber optic ring around the district so that there's no one point of failure. And just real quickly to give you an idea of what that looks like, is the graphic there you see is typically what it looks like, our network looks like right now. You can take that campus there and just assume that's whatever your favorite campus is in Tyler IC, that's it. And then imagine another one of those for every single district. It looks like a hub and spoke. Every campus connects back to the data center, that's the little arrows, with a hub and spoke network. And then from there, all the campuses go out one internet path to the internet, or one 10 gig path to the internet. And so what we have, while our network is very stable, we have a lot of single points of failure. We lose the internet at the admin building, we lose it to the entire district. We lose, somebody bulldozes the fiber up at Tyler High, we lose, that whole campus loses connectivity back to the admin building. Or if we had a fire or a tornado, well, it's a tornado shelter, so we'd probably be okay there, but if we had a fire or anything kind of disaster that took out our entire data center, we lose it across the district. And so, again, while we have a very stable network, those are some fears that we had, and that's why we came to you guys a while back with the wanting to upgrade our network and build another data center, add a fiber optic ring. And so this is what the new Tyler IC network will look like as soon as it's completed. You see on the left-hand side there in the blue, that's what I just showed you. The red lines represent what the new network will look like. So each campus will have 2 diverse paths to 2 separate data centers. They'll then be connected with a 100 gig connection, and then each of them will have a 10 gig connection to the internet, giving us a full 20 gigs to internet. What this means is that if we lose a data center, we're still operational. If someone digs up a fiber optic line at one of our campuses, they're still operational. If we lose a full leg to the internet, still operational. We won't fully replicate all services in both data centers, but it will give us a much more stable network and allow us to keep our cameras running, keep our phones running, keep the internet going, and keep operations going in the network, in the district. So there's just a quick picture of Tyler Legacy's data center. It's ready to go, except the UPS goes all the way at the back there where you see the breaker panel. And as soon as that shows up and is installed, then you'll see racks in there and air conditioning, and the ceiling grid will be finished, and it'll look a lot like the one I showed you of our current data center. So just finally, what are our goals for next year? Continue reinforcing cybersecurity training, continue revising our guidelines, maintaining our systems to ensure security compliance. Those three are always going to be on our goals because that's the main goals we have each year. But the other three, complete our build out of the legacy data center, acquire E-rate funding to fund that fiber optic ring of up to 85 to 90%, and then finally to finalize installation of our fiber optic ring once that funds comes. So we have a lot going on right now. We have a lot going on in general, but as it relates to cybersecurity, there's always a lot going on. Daryl, one of the smartest people I know, and does a really great job for us, and so we're really proud of what he does and what our whole staff does as it relates to technology in general, but also cybersecurity. So that's all we have for you today. So if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions?
If you want to visit the data center, wait till about September. Come on over on about 102-degree day.
Yeah, it's cold.
Spend a little time outside, and then we'll give you a little tour of the data center. It's the coolest room in the district. I may or may not have gone in there for that reason. It is a heck of an improvement from what we have.
Absolutely.
Very
Yep.
high-tech.
Well, I'm proud that we're able to do that and that we have capable individuals handling it. We live in an increasingly digital world that we use it for technology for all the efficiencies that it brings, but I tell you what, if it goes down, we become entirely inefficient. So we do need to keep our eye on that. So thank you for doing that.
I have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
First one is, very impressive presentation. It looked like we're up to date and on top of it in regards to cybersecurity. I was wondering if there are do you know of any actual districts that have actually had infiltration into the systems? Have you heard of any?
There have been some. Daryl probably knows a little bit more. I know, was it Athens?
Athens, the most recent
Yeah,
one that I'm
I
aware of
heard
is
of that.
Athens ISD. I want to say Lufkin ISD was recently relatively hit. Their entire system got compromised by ransomware, and they were down for several weeks. Athens ISD got hit. Most of their system was down for a week or so, and they still wound up never recovering some of their stuff. A large chunk of it they had to rebuild from scratch.
So our system is basically designed to detect the ways in which they enter their systems as well?
Yes, and our stuff is more segmented than theirs. They're
Okay.
smaller districts. They don't
Right.
have a lot of the same resources that we do. Our stuff's segmented. They would have a very, very tough time, even if they got into us to shut us down. Could they compromise a system here or a system there? Anything's possible. But would they be able to bring us down? No, I don't think so.
And you talked about the threat of the students and how you monitor that. Is it the issued Chromebooks as far as their activity, or is it it's not their personal
guys.
stuff, is it?
Yeah, there's some proprietary things that
Oh,
can be
really?
discussed somewhere else,
Ah,
but
okay.
we are monitoring activity on our network.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
probably good. Some of the stuff we really don't want to talk about
Okay,
in public
that's fine.
domain, but we're more than happy to talk about it offline. We don't want
Okay.
necessarily them to know
Great.
the exact tools we're using to monitor what they're doing.
Okay, that's good.
Easier to get around them.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for your thorough report. All right, moving on, we do have a couple of action items. Item A is to consider the approval of a competitive sealed proposal delivery method.
We'll let Mr. Loper just go to the presentation table. He's here has some support there with the two project managers, Cherie Jones and Brady Bedingfield. Y'all don't have to go to the table. Brady, you were the best color man in baseball last time. Didn't say a word that you were up there. So y'all can just stay at your seats. But Mr. Loper, you might want to just give a brief explanation as we're trying to be as efficient as possible in anticipation of a successful election. It doesn't marry us to anything if unsuccessful. So why don't you just go ahead and tell them what's on your agenda item?
Thank you, Dr. Crawford. As y'all are aware, in the past, we've used a CMAR, which is Construction Manager at Risk Delivery Method, and rightfully so for the projects considering basically the last two high schools. This delivery method's competitive seal proposal would not have been a good fit for those projects, mainly because of the length of the projects, the phasing of the projects, and the size of those projects. But now, since we have a couple of projects hopefully we're successful with, which is Hubbard and Early College High School, we had the opportunity to go with this method, which we believe brings the best value to the district because the scope is defined. And what I mean by that, y'all helped us and approved the design of those facilities, and the designs are complete as I speak. So why is that an advantage? When you do see them at risk, actually the idea is to marry up your construction manager with your architect, which is prior to design. And along the way, one of the advantages is you can do early packages or early dirt packages and start packages on your projects, but also along the way, you're getting updates on cost and materials, and they're actually collaborating with the architects to help keep the cost or any possible change orders down that may come once they bid. Now, when the contractors bid, they use CSP for all the subcontractors. They get to review the plans. We have already reviewed the plans. Basically, your pre-engineering services you would get from CMAR, you have in-house, which we've already done with our team, Brady and Cherie, and including myself, because the key to this is to define the scope exactly, meaning having a good set of plans, which we believe we have. We've been reviewing these for a while. So when you do CMAR, your scope is not always defined when we come to you guys with a guaranteed maximum price, because there may be subcontracts that aren't qualified yet because we're in a hurry to get you this pricing. And so some things can be missed, and once those are missed, then the CMAR comes to us and says, hey, this wasn't in our GMP, we got to use owner's contingency. This type method, that goes away because all of the contractors have to sharpen their pencils on bid day, and the bids you get are what's going to happen, and we can hold them actually a little accountable in a better way than that. Now, as far as the early start, that really doesn't apply here because we already have the plans, and because we'll already have the bids in, we believe we can start in June. So there wouldn't, that difference in CMAR and CSP really doesn't affect us because the plan's already done and the scope's defined.
8 construction methods per statute that are allowable by.
That is correct.
Okay.
And it's in the board agenda item, and it's actually Government Code 2269 and Educational Code 33.05 that we have to come to the board for a selection method of anything over $50,000. Now, I will tell you all this, we have been using CSP, but in smaller projects of less than 50,000. I might also add that in the CSP, you also select your contractor by a way of weighted criteria. So that weighted criteria, we have a committee to review that, and the way the statute reads that you can't negotiate price, but you can negotiate scope. So when we get the bids in and we look at the contractor and we select, this is the number one contractor we believe bring the best value to the district, well, at that point, we can look at the cost of each work item and basically, is there a better way to do this or change the scope of work, which ultimately changes the price of work, and then we make that selection. If we can't come to an agreement with the number one contractor on any of that, then we are required to go to the number two contractor and start those same negotiations with the scope of work. till you've exhausted all contracts, so. I'll certainly entertain any questions
Yeah.
and.
Anybody on the board have any
Waiting.
questions for Mr. Loper about this item?
I did have a question, clarification. You were saying that if we can't work it out with the first contractor, we can go to the number 2 contractor. Now, do you have to come back before the board for the number 2 contractor to be approved, or how's that work?
We have to come back once we get
Okay.
all the bids in, yes, sir.
Right. But if number 1 is denied after we've approved it, you have to come back with number 2 as well?
No, I don't
Okay.
have to come to the board
Okay.
for each approval of the contractors. If we approve within internally the price and the scope and all of that, so then I come to the board for approval of that. We don't put you through all the selection process.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just for us to approve the method in which we select contractors. And then
Yes, sir.
Right.
y'all take it from there.
Yes, sir.
So if XYZ contractor, GC or whoever, or whatever, GC, is selected, or through the rubric, you bring them back to the board for approval.
Yes, sir.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay. And then if we don't, if XYZ GC, all that negotiation on number 1 versus number 2 is done prior to you coming to the board for that, is what I'm asking.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Motion to approve competitive sealed proposal delivery method.
Okay, all right. Any more comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Loper. Okay, now we have to consider the approval of Proclamation 2022 textbook adoption.
This is part of the process in adopting a textbook, recommendations for the following area of health and physical education, grades K through 12. IMA, or the instructional materials recommended for adoption, will be required using the instructional material allotment. We recommend the board approves the attached Tyler ISD recommendations from the state adoption list for use in classrooms beginning this next school year. Just want to refresh the board's memory about how these actually get in front of us. They actually have to go in front of the State Board of Education before our committees take a look at it in regard to that. So if there's any question about the health curriculum and all of the good things that deal with the health of students, remember that you have a State Board of Education that serves as a clearinghouse, a very conservative-minded, each individual of those members, whether they're Republican or Democrat, take a look at this, and they vote in regard to putting this in front of the schools. Then the schools get the bundle of what they take a look at, have an advisory committee put together in regard to looking at those, and they bring them in front of you. So I know that's been a pretty hot topic here recently about what gets put in front of our students. This actually has a clearinghouse at the state level to be able to vet that before it gets to the school districts, unlike other books that we've discussed at this dais.
How often on this particular health and physical education, have we had to adopt new instructional materials?
Man, sometimes it goes, Ron, Mr. Jones, 15 years sometimes between adoptions. It really is a budgetary thing as well, not just are the materials, up to date and modern. It's whether or not there's funding as provided by the legislature. So you'll probably get a good 10 years of use out of this, at least.
Any major changes in this compared to what we have been going with?
Well, remember now, there's the other thing is that will be coming from a SHAC recommendation. They've got 2 public meetings they've got to hold prior to a recommendation on the sex ed curriculum. So that's kind of a different thing is when we're talking about this. There is some general education in regard to health, but as far as a typical sex ed curriculum, that is also approved by the State Board of Education for y'all's consideration with a lot of local tweakage to it. That'll come at a later date, if that's kind of where you're asking.
Oh, no, not really, but
Yeah.
thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, okay.
Get your
Yeah.
mind out of the gutter, Crawford.
Well, it's not in the gutter, it's
No,
just
no,
trying to
okay.
keep y'all informed in regard to that, because I know this could be one of those question marks, whether or not health and physical education, and what those changes might be inside of those.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
okay, well, good deal. Any other questions or comments?
I've got a few. What is Proclamation 2022?
It's the year of the proclamation. That, I know, this is the wording that we're supposed to put in front of you guys in regard to that.
Who made the proclamation?
I assume the state did in regard to this,
It's just jumpy. If we're gonna, I don't know, feel like I need to at least know what, I'll find out, but
absolutely. Tell you what, table it. I'm gonna change my recommendation on here to a table so we can get more information for y'all. How about that? Am I okay on that, Tasha? Okay. I'm not gonna jam us up on purchasing or anything if we can wait 8 days or whatever until our April board meeting.
Proclamation
We would need a motion.
Motion to table. Item B.
I have a motion to table and I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Opposed? Motion carries. Ayes have it. Okay, so we'll table that
Okay.
out. All right, well, now we'll go into executive session. And I don't know if we'll have action to follow or not.
I don't have any anticipated.
Okay, well, good deal. We will now go into executive session.